If you've never had the delight of experiencing car boot season in England in the summer or any other part of the UK, think of a car boot sale as being like a muddy tailgate in a field, except there's no football, and ideally you come home sober and slightly richer in cash but poorer in possessions because you hope you've sold a bunch of stuff that Sunday morning. Really, anything that you do as a second-hand seller at a car boot sale or similar also applies to selling online. I would keep track of what you're selling and for how much so that you can tot up at the end of the day how much profit you made. And again, exactly the same principle if you're selling products online. Even if you're doing this very casually, you have like one item on Etsy, although I will have some installments coming up on why maybe selling one item on Etsy is not a long-term approach to making money, but I'd definitely suggest tracking any sales you get in a spreadsheet. Doesn't have to be a complex spreadsheet. If you are doing this very casually on the side, maybe you won't go over the tax-free allowance, but either way you'll have a record for yourself, and it can just be nice and rewarding to look back on what you've sold. I mentioned that at these events some people like to just kind of go round and round, so it also pays to be first when it comes to second-hand selling. So if it's selling in person, that would mean getting there as early as possible so that you can choose the best spot, but also meet those buyers who only go at the very start. So these might be kind of serious dealers who are looking for collectibles and they want to get things before anyone else arrives. And they might also then be going off to other sales the same day. So that's why they're there so early. If you're selling online, I think getting in first can mean being one of the first people to adopt a trend that you think is going to have longevity. But also the other way to think about it is how can you do something that other people are doing but put a unique spin on it and be the first person to sell a different or better version of that, or be the first person to serve a group of people who maybe aren't being served up until this point. Those buyers that like to do laps of a second-hand sale are quite reflective of our behavior online as well, which is that sometimes we need to either be exposed to an idea a lot of times before we'll buy into it, or we'll kind of like circle around a product or a service several times before deciding that yes, this is the thing that's going to solve my problem. From the seller's point of view, I think there's two things to keep in mind here. So one is there's really no need to be pushy when it comes to selling, because everyone in life does different things at different paces. Some people buy things instantly with very little interaction and information. Some people take ages to make a decision and they like to gather all of the research themselves without ever actually speaking to the seller. Other people want to have a really long involved conversation with the seller and then buy nothing. But they might buy something in like a year's time instead. And you don't know that yet. You don't want to have like a sense of entitlement about anything, that if you've answered a question for someone or you help someone, that they owe you right now. And sometimes people, the problem that you're solving, they just don't need to solve that problem urgently today, but they might be very happy that you exist in a few months' time when that is an urgent problem that they want to solve, and they know that you're the number one person that they want to speak to about it. The other thing you can do with these sales is do a sort of dry rehearsal. So if you're going to a secondhand sale and you're going to be setting up tables or laying things out, you could try and set all of that up in your living room first so that you kind of know how you want to unpack your car and how you want to present things. It can be really good to hang up things like clothes. If you only have like a spare bedroom at home, or you're renting and you don't actually own a wardrobe, you might be using a rail instead anyway. But if this is something that you were going to do regularly, and also if you were going to go the route of actually buying items to resell, then having a rail to hang things on could be worth it for you. Maybe you picked that rail up at a second-hand sale for not very much money, in which case that makes it worthwhile. I don't own anything like that, so what I do if I want to sell clothes, people love to rummage in a box if it's stuff that, it doesn't matter if it gets creased up or it's something that doesn't crease. But if I'm trying to sell like a evening dress or a smart item of clothing that doesn't fit anymore, I would actually hang that on my car doors. But I also see people doing odd things like laying out stuff on their dirty car, and as a buyer, maybe your expectation is that you're going to take something home and clean it if you didn't pay very much for it anyway. But I personally would want to know that the seller is taking care of the item even though they're getting rid of it. So I make sure I protect all of those clothes. So I would take them either on a hanger where there's like already a bag covering them, or I would cover the doors with bags to make sure that they're not coming into contact with your car. And again, same thing online. Just think about How are you looking after your merchandise if it's physical products? And can you do a little rehearsal of what that looks like to the buyer? Stand where they would be standing or sit where they would be sitting at their computer and actually think about what that looks like to them. Another tip is to have an efficient process for all of this and set yourself up for success. So if you're doing a secondhand sale in person, I would try and pack my car in reverse order so it can be helpful to put the sort of smallest boxes in first and then your biggest items last, actually, because they're going to be easier to take out. If you are using your own table, you'd want to put your table in last if possible, so that that's the first thing that can come out to help you get set up as quickly as possible. And I would also quite often do a lot of this the night before so that I'm not running around the morning of. Similarly, if you're selling online, what's the most efficient process? Can you automate any of this? So when I pack my car for a secondhand sale, I'll quite often pack it the same way every time through habit, and because I know how to do it in such a way that means that I can really speedily set up when I arrive. Same thing if you're going to have a little shop on your website or you're going to list multiple things on eBay and things like that. Can you have a batching process where you photograph everything at the same time, do all the listings in one go, and then you're checking at the same time whether everything's sold? You can probably take it all to be posted at the same time. And can you get into a routine if you do have a lot to sell and you do want to do this ongoing for a little while? Or if you want to have a clear out every year, can you get to a point where it's almost like muscle memory to do this stuff? So one of the reasons that I don't use online marketplaces a lot is because I'm not very good at batching everything, photographing it all in one day and listing it all at the same time. And that just makes it seem like a lot more effort than it really is, right? Whereas if I can take everything to one sale and sell as much as possible in one day, that's a lot more convenient. But part of that convenience is just in my mind because it's just that's the way I've done it before and I've already got a process in place for that. Now it does take time initially when you're sorting through all your belongings. So it is worth, as with lots of things in life, if you want to avoid a false economy, spending some time up front. But because I would do it all in one session, so I would just go top to bottom in my house and find all those Marie Kondo items that aren't bringing me joy or that I'm not using anymore. And it might take a couple of hours, but at least I know I've done all of that preparation in one go. Similarly, if I'm going to sell things on my website, I might not list everything at the same time, but I try to play with all of my designs at the same time. The last time I wrote an ebook, I actually wrote more than one at the same time, so I just had a really long writing session where I powered through those, because batching everything, and that's what I'm trying to do now with my podcast and YouTube, is also to batch a lot more because it really is a more efficient way to do it. One last thing. So I mentioned I like to listen to podcasts while I'm at a secondhand sale because, like I said at the start, I do value my time. I don't want to just stare into space for 3 hours. I know mindfulness has become a really big thing, but I don't know that it's really a place and time to meditate because obviously people are talking to you as well most of the time. But the other reason that I prefer an in-person sale to pre-loved marketplaces online is it gets me outside, I get some fresh air and sunlight, I get to talk to randomers, which doesn't happen very often when you work from home. And although it costs a tiny bit of petrol to get there, I drive so little that when my car dies, I'm either going to switch to a car sharing club or an electric car or none at all. So driving there basically keeps the battery running on my car. What did I say at the start about we can justify any decision? However, the events of 2020 have also shown that you can't always do things the way that you want, so it is good to know what the other options are. That's why today I have tried to talk about how you could apply this to other forms of selling. I am an advocate for car boot sales and secondhand sales like them, for getting rid of as many items as possible in one go. I also think that anything that you learn from doing that, you can also apply to selling online, whether that's trying to get better value for your time from an online marketplace, or whether it's batching a bunch of products for your own website or a free landing page if you're not ready for a website. At any rate, decide if it's right for you, and remember, watch out for those seagulls in life. You don't need them. I think that's it. Take your own table, and then buy nothing.
You gotta get better at this part of the job.
If you found today useful, don't forget to test what the like and subscribe button do, and you'll want to catch the rest of the series next.
You're good? Good. How are you good? You turning me down?
The best way to get updates otherwise from Save Like a Bear is actually via my email newsletter, where I'll also send out a bonus guide on budgeting and mindset that you can use whether you've added a second income or not. Links to sign up to that are in the description.